Okay, Dr. Mindy here, and on this video I have something really cool for you. And this is a hormonal video that applies to both men and women. And it is one specific hormone that if you boost this hormone, it will help you become more insulin sensitive. It will help reduce stress. And what I'm hoping, stay through the end of this video, because what I'm hoping you'll see is this hormone and the little tricks to boost this hormone can help you elongate your fast, can help your fasting efforts feel easier, and help you as you learn how to change yourself from a sugar burner to a fat burner. I really want you to lean in on this hormone. I'm going to give you 15 different ways you can boost this hormone at the end of this video, so stay all the way through. That you may know more than these 15, but it's a door in. Let's all work on this hormone to make ourselves better fat burners, make ourselves more metabolically flexible, and have a greater experience with fasting. So as always, if you're new to my channel, subscribe, and if you love this, share it out into the world. Enjoy. Okay, so I really want to give you guys some tools that are going to make your fasting efforts a whole lot easier. And we've been diving in on my channel here into hormones and fasting. And I've been thinking a lot about the hormonal hierarchy and how insulin is at the middle of the hierarchy. And I'll explain here in a moment what the hierarchy is if you're brand new to my channel. And so if we want to impact insulin, which is the whole reason so many of us come to build a fasting lifestyle, then we need to look at the hormones that influence insulin. And the number one hormone that influences insulin, the most immediate influence, is cortisol. But I want to go even one step above that, and I want to look at this hormone that controls cortisol, and that is oxytocin. Because when we go into these longer fasts, we're trying to help you guys become more insulin sensitive again. And in order to become insulin sensitive, you can access a hormone as simple and as lovely as oxytocin to help your cells become more receptive to the insulin experience. So this is what I'm going to do. I picked up a meta-analysis of several different studies on oxytocin and metabolic syndrome, and it's fascinating what I found out. So let me kind of walk you through the history of oxytocin. I want to talk to you about where you find oxytocin, and then I'm going to give you 15 different strategies for boosting oxytocin that I think will really help your fasting experience. So let's start off with this idea. So oxytocin was first developed in 1906, and it was originally thought of as a bonding hormone. They found it when in mother and child, when a baby was born, that a mom had a tremendous amount of oxytocin that bonded her to her baby. So for about 60 years, they thought that was oxytocin's number one hormonal job in our bodies or in a woman's body. But then they went on to find out, and this part is both men and women, is they went on to find out that there is a metabolic effect of oxytocin. So this is in 1963, researchers started to dive into this metabolic effect. And here's what they found. They found that when you had a higher level of oxytocin surging through your body, that it improved your glucose uptake. It caused your lipid, your fat cells to break down, and that it would often make you less insulin resistant. So this is back in 1963. So I became fascinated by this in my research to bring you guys more tools for fasting and more tools on how to balance these hormones. So when I dove into the research, holy moly, there is so much out there. So I'm going to give you some overarching ideas that they have found in looking at oxytocin and metabolic syndrome. There are a lot of animal studies, and there are several human studies. More animal studies than human, so I will try to point out when there is a difference. In the animal studies, what they found is that deficiencies in oxytocin signaling, So oxytocin is made in your hypothalamus, pituitary, and it gets signaled to different areas of your body where you have these receptor sites. I'll talk about these areas in a moment. But when there is a deficiency in this oxytocin signaling, that it led to more obesity despite normal food intake. So think about that. That was in animals. So think about that for a moment. People would gain weight from a deficiency in oxytocin regardless of what they ate. So this again, I'm like, wow, well, let's start making more oxytocin. Now that was an animal study. What about a human study? And what they found is that oxytocin concentration in the blood was significantly lower in obese individuals with diabetes. And this is straight from the study that it suggests that the involvement of the oxytocin system is key in the pathogenesis. So that's the creation of a cardiometabolic disease. Okay? Then they went on, so all that those fancy words is that there could be a deficiency of oxytocin in people with metabolic syndrome. That's all those fancy words say. But then they went on and said, well, what if we give oxytocin to people? Will that help them regulate glucose better? And sure enough, human study that the administration of oxytocin was associated with significant weight loss, as well as improvement in insulin sensitivity. And this was in human subjects. So let's all get more oxytocin so that we not only can fast longer, but we can become more insulin sensitive. So we know that oxytocin is made in the brain. So, you guys who've read the Menopause Reset, you've watched any of my stuff on hormonal control. When we're dealing with hormones, you're dealing with a team of organs. Hormones don't act by themselves. They don't usually come just from one area, that it takes a team to be put together, kind of like your thyroid. If you have a problem with a thyroid hormone, it's not just because you have a thyroid problem. You also got to look at the hypothalamus and pituitary. So with oxytocin, we have to do the same thing. Starts in the brain. That's one of the major signaling areas, and it goes to 4 different areas of your body where you have receptor sites. Your skeletal muscle, your adipose tissue, your liver, and your pancreas. So these are the areas that oxytocin is going to have the most dramatic effect. When there are receptor sites for oxytocin, your brain is making oxytocin, you are going to have an influence on those 4 areas. And what will happen with a boost of oxytocin is that you are going to improve glucose uptake. So you're going to improve your cell's ability to be able to use glucose. You're going to improve insulin sensitivity. So those of you that are insulin resistant and all that insulin is starting to get stored in fat, you're going to be able to utilize the insulin that's being stored in fat better. So you're also going to be able to break down that fat easier. So a dose of oxytocin helps to create something called lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat. So we're back at, holy cow, our bodies are miraculous. We just need to get more oxytocin going through us. In fact, there was a really cool study done where they showed that it was a small group, 8 weeks, human study, that when they gave them oxytocin before meals and at bedtime, the study was done on both men and women who were overweight, that the oxytocin led to weight loss and improved their lipid profile, HDL, LDLs, total cholesterol. So again, let's go back to this idea that let's work on this hormone. 2 other things that happens with oxytocin and how it can help you in your fasting efforts. There is also great research showing that oxytocin will help the HPA axis, which is your cortisol levels. So it is known that this is the hormonal hierarchy, when you raise oxytocin, you lower your cortisol levels and you start to help the dysregulation of your HPA axis, which is those of you that are adrenal fatigued. This is key. If you're adrenal fatigued and you want to fast, we got to get you more oxytocin because it's showing to balance out that HPA axis. And then the last thing that it does before I jump into how you become an oxytocin master is that it suppresses your appetite. So now let's put you in a fasted state. Let's walk you through a scenario of how you can use this hormone to your advantage. So you know you're insulin resistant. You might have high cholesterol, you might have some heart problems, so you come to a fasting lifestyle. When you come to the fasting lifestyle, whether it's intermittent fasting, 24-hour fasting, you start to realize that switching from a sugar burner to a fat burner is a little more difficult than you realized, and you're struggling. So in that struggle, in that moment, can we start to introduce more oxytocin? In order to help you make that transition into being a fat burner, make that transition into this insulin sensitive lifestyle, how about we use oxytocin to start to have a chain reaction or a chain effect on all your other hormones? So in that difficult moment of fasting, can you do one of the 15 things that I'm about to tell you? And here are the 15 things, again, based off of science. There's a lot more than 15. I found some like different herbs that can help oxytocin, but I wanted to give you things that were free. So 15 free things you can do to build oxytocin, and then I'll talk to you about how you can use it when you're fasting. So number 1, hugs. So this is kind of interesting. 8 hugs a day, according to Psychology Today, is supposed to give you a significant boost of oxytocin. I found some literature also showing that 10 seconds, you hug for 10 seconds, you get maximum oxytocin surging through your body. One of the challenges we have with oxytocin is its half-life is very quick. It's like minutes. So you have to keep working to stimulate it. So if you are trying to go to a 24-hour fast, could you do those 8 hugs throughout the day? You know, like grab your kids, grab your spouse, whoever you can hug, and hug them throughout the day to keep getting that burst of oxytocin. If you can hug them for 10 seconds, that's even better. You get oxytocin when you use the word love. So can you call people on these days that you're fasting and start to tell people you love them, the ones that you love? Every time you say you love somebody, you're getting an oxytocin boost. I've talked about this a lot before. Pet your dog. So maybe it's hour 17 and you're trying to get to a 24-hour fast. Go find your dog or your cat and pet your dog. You're going to get an oxytocin boost. When that oxytocin boost kicks in, now you're going to break down fat. You're going to become more insulin sensitive. You're going to have more regulation of your blood sugar. You're going to help with that whole transition into this fat burning lifestyle. Okay, but that's not it. I got more for you. So a roller coaster ride, if we ever get to go out, or skydiving, if we ever get to go do that again, 200% spike in oxytocin if you are skydiving. So maybe you should go skydive in a fasted state. Just throwing it out there as something you could do. Okay, warm and cold baths. So it's hour 24, you want to go 36 hours with your fast, you're cranky, get in a warm bath and then go to sleep. Those are like my biggest things. But use a warm bath to stimulate oxytocin. Cold baths do the same. You know, we've got this whole world right now that is jumping into cold baths because of Wim Hof. Get in a cold bath. Do an alternating warm-cold. That can repair the mitochondria, make them more insulin sensitive, plus you're going to elevate your oxytocin levels, which will bring cortisol down, help regulate insulin, and eventually that will have an effect on testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. Okay, number 6, meditation. Now, in a fasted state, this could be a little hard if you're like frustrated, but if you have a tool like Brain Tap or a guided meditation, that could be great for balancing your, bringing up your oxytocin boost. Okay, give a gift to somebody. If you're frustrated and you're in a fasted state, go buy somebody a gift and give somebody a gift. You get the oxytocin boost, they get the gift. How cool is that? You can do yoga, you can listen to music, You could get on the phone with friends. Conversations with people that you love will boost your oxytocin. You could go spend time with other friends, maybe friends that are fasting. You guys all hang out together. And so you're working on this insulin sensitivity while you're hanging out with each other. Getting or giving a massage can create an oxytocin effect. Acupuncture, go get an acupuncture treatment. That can raise oxytocin. Sex also raises oxytocin, so in a fasted state, go have sex with your partner and see if that brings up your oxytocin levels and allows you to fast a little bit longer. Do something nice for somebody. Go be of service to somebody. I even found a really cool study showing that if you volunteer, your oxytocin levels go up. So maybe when you know you want to go into a longer fast, you plan that around a volunteer day. And then the last one that I found that was really interesting was breath work. So Wim Hof breathing, I just got done interviewing the renegade pharmacist. You can find him on Instagram, and he's all about soma breathing. And we talked a lot about oxytocin and the hormonal hierarchy. That will come out on the Resetter podcast soon, so stay tuned for that. You can go look at the interview I did with Autumn Smith that's on the Resetter podcast, where we talked about how changing your state so that you don't lean towards food. Well, now I'm looking at this and thinking, well, the beauty of dancing, playing music, breath work, all these things that change your state. What changing your state does is raise oxytocin. And not only does it make you feel better, but now it has this cascading effect on cortisol and insulin and your sex hormones. So hopefully you see where I'm going with this. I think that when we are working to become fat burners, when we're working to get ourselves more metabolically flexible, we got to use every tool we possibly can find. And the oxytocin, we can't leave it out. It is at the top of the hormonal hierarchy. And this is applicable, again, to both men and women. So what I'd love to hear from you guys is, as you go into these longer fasts, as you stretch your fasting muscle, let me know if you try some of these 15 things, if they work for you. You may have already known that, like, hey, when I'm fasting, if I turn on music and dance around my kitchen, I feel better. You may already know that. So let me know what your favorite way to boost oxytocin is, and if you've used it to help you prolong a fast. But you are hormonal. You are a neurochemical being. And so we are trying to change your hormones through fasting, and we have to think beyond insulin. And to me, this is exciting research that we can start applying. I mean, oxytocin is such a beneficial hormone to have surging through our body to help us as humanity, help us bond together, and help us just feel better about ourselves, the world, and each other. So let's go make more oxytocin together. As always, I hope that helps.